I am the dean of the school since 4 years, and I've been helping Miriam with the observatory as one of the main projects of these last years. You are in Blanquerna, but what is Blanquerna? Where you are now? Blanquerna is a school inside of Ramon Llull University. Ramon Llull University is one of the most important private universities of Spain. Is one of the biggest private universities of Spain, and is a federative university. A federative university means that Ramon Llull University collects different centers in Barcelona that they are quite important in the areas of knowledge. For instance, ESADE, one of the most important business schools of the world, IQS and engineering, and Blanquerna. Blanquerna has 3 schools, one school on education and psychology, another school on health, and this school that is communication and international relations. This year we celebrate the 20th anniversary of Blanquerna School. We started as a school of communication, providing several degrees in communication, journalism, audiovisual communication, advertising. And that 4 years ago, when I started as a dean, we also we started with another degree, a degree in international relations. And you are in a small community. We are 1,500 students, more or less. 1,200 students with the undergraduate studies, and about 300 of masters and doctorate. We are around 200 teachers, more or less. Some of them are full-time teachers, full-time researchers, but we have more than the 50% of the teachers who are professionals in their fields. For this thing, we have a lot of journalists, a lot of specialists in creativity of advertising, diplomats. We have active practitioners on the field of this area. And we have also another special thing is that the first 2 years of our studies are studies focused in humanities. That means that prior to study the techniques of journalism, prior to study the language of the advertising, they spend 2 years on philosophy, history, sociology, economy, the basic areas that after help a lot in the future as a journalist, advertiser. In these last years, we promote this observatory. Linda Miriam, she's the director. And since 3 years, I think, we have the RISECI program, one of the first European programs that the university was able to apply. And we are really happy to have with us the University of Edinburgh. I think we have to have here some.
I don't know if you guys arrived.
No?
No, I don't
No, not okay. Edinburgh, Sweden, Slovenia, different areas of Europe. I stop here. You are going to talk about the seminar. And again, welcome. And I hope that you will have a very nice day in Barcelona, and also I hope the weekend. Enjoy the city. And you are going to know a very nice city. Very multicultural, very, very exciting city. And you are here also in a very special neighborhood, because you are in the center of the city and in a place that is in a square where you have different cultures, religions. And we are going to talk something that is very present also in this concrete area of the city.
Thank you. Thanks very much. our friend of Scotland is not here, but we want to be precise with timing. I wanted also to welcome all of you here and to explain you that this is one of the activities we have planned in the RISECI project, and the RISECI stands for Religion in the Shaping of European Cultural Identity. One of the main focus of this project is to bring together actors, scholars, universities, centers, foundations, to reflect on these issues, on cultural heritage, on media, on religion, and on Europe, but not only in contemporary Europe, but also in ancient and past times. So we have our partners that come from Sweden and from Slovenia and Edinburgh, and they are also following us today throughout social media and a hangout, because they are not all here. We have established this observatory, and for us it's important for you to know that it is the observatory that focuses on these issues, because we want to put religion in the public sphere. We think that religion is something not private, something not inside persons that are not outside the society. And we wanted to address atheism as one of the main features in Europe. And we want to understand if atheism is present or if it is absent in narrative, in art, and specifically in literature. But what is atheism? Why we have chosen this topic if we deal with religion? Why we have done the opposite? We think this idea, this concept of atheism, of negating the existence of God and going against the beliefs, is something more interesting than agnosticism for us. Because agnosticism, you leave the door open. You leave things that maybe a God is present or not. But here we like hard challenges, and we didn't like agnosticism because it was like soft. And we thought that atheism is a strong issue and it's more powerful, and this is why you are here. We want to focus on specific case studies. This is not going to be a general debate or discussion about atheism, but we have picked very concrete and very different cases and themes, like Sufism or Antoni Tapias or Edith Stein, to extract from this a general discussion. And this is the idea. So please feel free in the discussions to bring other case studies or to bring general thoughts to that. But we wanted to organize this seminar based on the specific issues and the specific themes that every scholar has as something knowledgeable. And this is why we have gathered different scholars here. The idea is to discuss only 15 minutes, and I think we will need maybe 5 more minutes for each debate, because it's already a little bit late. But then we will publish this in an online book. So it's important for you to know that we will have the proceedings of that in an online book that will be published later. So with no further delay, I just want to present our first speaker. It's Professor Ignasi Boada. Dr. Boada is a specialist in German idealism, and specifically in Heidegger. And today he's going to address the theme of nihilism and pessimism in Schopenhauer, specifically in the writings and in the work of Thomas Mann. The word is yours. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Miriam and the Observatory, for inviting me to participate in this meeting, which is going to be, I'm sure, very exciting, especially when we discuss different topics. Well, given the fact that I have 15 minutes, I'll go straight ahead if you grant me the permission. Well, one of the first aspects that I would like to stress is the fact that Schopenhauer was born 1 year before the outbreak of the French Revolution. That is, that he belongs to the generation that received the impact of this huge event in European history. And not only French Revolution, his generation received the impact of the terror, the Napoleonic Wars until Waterloo, 1815, just 200 years ago. We commemorate this event. Schopenhauer was 27 years old when Waterloo, the Congress of Vienna, and the following restoration of the Ancien Régime in Europe, the many revolutionary struggles in Europe, the revolution of 1830, 1848, etc., etc. The most relevant element in European history in the first half of the 19th century probably was the reception of the ideals embodied in the French Revolution, namely the ideals of freedom, equality, and brotherhood, liberté, égalité, fraternité, etc. And I would add a fourth aspect that was very important in order to take into consideration the framework, the cultural framework in which Schopenhauer developed his life, is the conception of history, according to which we can hope that the future will be better than the past, or that if we can change and improve the world and the human being through political and pedagogical action. In this sense, it would be essential to remind the huge influence of Hegel's philosophy. History is gradually the implementation of reason. The more we walk through history, the more we see how reality is shaped by reason. This comes from Hegel and had a huge influence in the 19th century. In general, due to the impact of Hegel's philosophy, it was believed that the final goal of all this work and effort to build a more perfect world was the implementation of a full rationality, a full rational world. Reality should be shaped by the form of a perfect rational structure. It goes without saying that the progress in science and technology endorse very much this conception of creative transformation of the improvement of reality. To put in few words, Europeans lived at that time in the confidence that first, nothing was established forever. Second, that an active life was a meaningful life, for we were called to be the subject of a big transformation of the world. This was our main responsibility in this world. This was our main responsibility in life. This was the sense of our life. The worker or the active person is the man to be praised, not the one who adopts a passive attitude toward reality. This deserves to be blamed. According to this very modern mentality, at the very end of this way, we would be not only wiser, not only more free and members of a better society, but above all, Europeans believe that at the end of this progress, we would be very happy. In fact, the search of happiness is a result of the product of the 19th century. It's one of the most crucial new values of modernity. Before modernity, the crucial aspect was the will to salvation. This has been substituted by the will to happiness, the pursuit of happiness. Now and here, in this life, we had the confidence that we had the tools, we had the energy, and we had the will to pursue it and to reach this happiness in history. This kind of ideas was, of course, controversial. In general, they were accepted, but many people, of course, they were reluctant to accept this new framework, this new cultural background. We could identify two fronts of resistance to accept this heritage of the French Revolution and this heritage of the Hegel's philosophy. First, we could say those who were conservatives, in the sense that they were in favor of a restoration of the Ancien Régime, were reluctant to accept these new ideas in part because they were the origin of a social transformation that tended to jeopardize their social and economic privileges. The second group, those who were skeptical, and here is Schopenhauer. That is, they were not ready to believe that a substantive transformation of reality would ever be possible. Schopenhauer, I repeat, belongs to this group, belongs to these people. Perhaps he is the most prominent expression of this group, of these people. He considers that all the promises, both of the culture of the revolution and the Hegelian philosophy, is a big mistake. It is a frivolity to believe that in the transformation of the human being and in the transformation of the human society, nothing essential, according to Schopenhauer, will never change in the future, despite all the political and pedagogical efforts to transform our way of being. Let us ask at this point, what is essential according to Schopenhauer? That is, what never will change in the future? What is the core of reality that will never change? Why does Schopenhauer believe that in spite of the many historical transformations, nothing essential is going to be different in the future? According to Schopenhauer, the answer is the will. The will is the substance of reality. And we could ask, what does the will want? What is the purpose of will? And the answer would be, according to Schopenhauer, the will wants nothing but to exist. And what for, we could ask. And the answer would be, the will wants to exist just for nothing. That is, there are no reasons, nor goals other than being. There is no sense, there is no transcendence, there is nothing beyond this blind impulse to live. There is no telos in Aristotelian sense of the word. There is no telos, there is no finality in Hegelian sense. There is no history, in fact, there is just nature, namely repetition of the same actions, of the same essential purposes. Following this conception, Schopenhauer establishes two kinds of people. First, those who believe that things can be changed. As a result of his belief, they are open for an active life, namely political, economic, pedagogical projects, etc. All of them induced by the confidence that we can transform and improve reality, or put in other words, that suffering and unhappiness are historical phenomena and not ontological reality. In fact, according to Schopenhauer, all these people are in the hands of ignorance. They do not recognize to what extent his life is the expression of the will, which is nothing but blind irrationality. The mark of this ignorance, the mark of this irrationality is, for example, life as a perpetual transition from a desire that wants to be fulfilled to another desire that appears immediately after the prior. From a goal to another goal, that is, one of the most important marks of the ignorant life is a constant unrest, the incapacity of living in peace. Second, perpetual sorrow. It couldn't be otherwise because we only want with what we don't have. Will is connected with sorrow, with unhappiness, because, I repeat, we only want what we don't have yet. Lack of peace, because desire is insatiable. Superficiality when trying to establish the goals of the action, and especially, and perhaps the most important, is the incapacity of contemplation and the incapacity of understanding reality. This is the first group. The second group, those people who understand, I'm talking of course according to Schopenhauer, those who understand which is the core, which is the substance of reality. They understand the root of human unrest, the reason why we are so unhappy. They are in a position to answer the question, why is our life so deep affected by sorrow? What these people understand make them unable to take part in active life. This is essential. They are too intelligent to believe in action as a means of redemption. They understand, for example, that technical progress is nothing else than a huge way to show to what extent we are in the hands of the will. They understand that the so-called historical progress will never bring us closer to happiness because it is the pure expression of the irrationality. Given the fact that modernity is under the influence of the ideology of progress and action, it is understandable that we live in a time of extreme superficiality and disorientation. A very important question for Schopenhauer is how to live the life after having understood the emptiness of every purpose. How to live after having seen the truth. And Schopenhauer speaks about two experiences: the aesthetical experience, the experience of art, and the experience of aesthetical life. In other words, the artist and the saint are the two only characters that are able to overcome the anxiety that arises from will. Both are ways to escape from the sorrow arising from desire. He says that the artist and the saint are the secret hope of the world. Thomas Mann. I hope I have time. Thomas Mann. In opposite to Schopenhauer, Thomas Mann, who was born in 1875 and died in 1955, belongs to a generation that witnesses the almost total bankruptcy or failure of the promises of modernity. Even long before the outbreak of the First World War, Thomas Mann was already concentrated in depicting the decadence of the modern world. Long before of the end of the optimistic conception of history, he already sees the contradictions of this world, in part thanks to the philosophy of Schopenhauer and the philosophy of Friedrich Nietzsche. In novels like Buddenbrooks, written or published in the first year of the 20th century, Tonio Kröger, published 2 years later, Death in Venice, 1911, or later on novels, magnificent novels like The Magic Mountain, we see to what extent some important aspects of Schopenhauer's philosophy are already present in his works. Thomas Mann is a German author in which we easily can appreciate the most important values of his national German cultural background. He's a writer, but his literature is not far away from philosophy, or even from Protestant theology. Not to speak from music, let's remind his last important novel, Dr. Faustus, for example. Concerning philosophy, as I pointed out, Thomas Mann is very much interested in the ideas of Schopenhauer and Nietzsche. Like them, he was, especially in his first period, not seduced at all by the ideas coming from the French Revolution, nor he thought that politics could change very much of the world and the human being. He was considered to be a member of the so-called conservative revolution in Germany, although it is very complex to describe what is the conservative revolution in Germany. We could just stress the fact that this movement claimed for the autonomy of the culture from politics. It's one of the most prominent ingredients of the tension between Cultura and Civilisation. This is a tension that arose in the 19th century and in part explains and justifies the First World War. He was conservative. That means he was fully aware of the fact that something important was in danger. One person can only be conservative if he's fully aware of the danger that is important, danger of something that he considers to be important. I would like very much to focus my attention in the first important novel written by Thomas Mann, namely Buddenbrooks. Buddenbrooks is a novel in which Mann depicts the decadence of a wealthy family, a family of the German bourgeoisie. The story entails 4 generations and aims at showing the gradual transition from an active life to a contemplative life, from vitality to philosophical reflection, from business to music and spirituality. Thomas Mann shows the polarity between world and spirit, life and awareness, nature and understanding, bourgeois and artist, will and music. Thomas Mann describes the transition, as said, from a wealthy situation to a total failure and collapse of a family. But the reason of the decadence is not to be found in financial problems of this business family. Rather, these problems are the consequence of decadence. The reason of the decadence of this family is the increasing influence of the intellectual reflection and of a spiritual and musical sense of life. The more the Buddenbrooks are aware of themselves and understand who they are, the more they become unable to continue an active life. The metaphor for self-awareness in Thomas Mann is illness. Self-awareness, in fully opposition to Hegel, is not the culmination of life, but is the most powerful poison. The first generation, represented by Johann Senior, embodies typical bourgeois values like passion for working, punctuality, discipline, hard sense of duty, confidence in the future, confidence in the capacity and skills, confidence in practical sense of life, etc. The importance of good name, the importance of prestige, the importance of reputation, and above all, indifference for reflection, meditation, contemplation, philosophy, music, or even religion. Music and religion in the first generation of this family are just pure decorative elements. All these values constitute what we could say it is a system of representation of life. In other words, what makes possible to conceive life as a meaningful experience, or better expressed, to live without the need of having a conception of life, because the indifference to this need is the condition of the vita activa. In spite of the success of the business of the family and beyond the apparent happiness of the Buddenbrooks, Thomas Mann highlights certain contradictions. He suggests the idea that behind the constant activity of Consul Johann Buddenbrooks, the second generation, there is a terrible sense of emptiness and unhappiness and solitude in his life. Johann Buddenbrook's son is already aware that something is wrong in his life. He loses the security, the confidence. He starts losing the confidence in himself, something that his father never knew. He starts slowly to understand that his activity is only possible because he tries to avoid understanding himself. He can act only because he cannot understand this activity. In the long run, in spite of all the efforts, this contradiction will be impossible to hide. It will take a lot of time. It will take even 3 generations of the family. At the end, this contradiction arises. The third generation, represented by Thomas Buddenbrook, is especially interesting. In his soul, in his spirit, Thomas is not any longer a bourgeois, but it is not yet an artist. He still seems to be a bourgeois, but he's not any longer a bourgeois. What makes him special is the fact that he needs a mask to act as if he shared the values of his father, but obviously he cannot any longer feel identified with the values that make possible to live like a businessman. All those who have a deep soul need a mask, said Nietzsche. And this is the case of Thomas Buddenbrook. He considers that he has to act like his ancestors, but he's not longer a true businessman equipped with a pragmatical representation of life. He's actually only an actor. He lives as if he were what he is not. He understands too much to live like his father. Like Faust, the last member of the family, Hanno Buddenbrook, understands perfectly the emptiness of an active life, the futility of all our projects. Hanno is not any longer interested in business, nor in the prestige of his name, nor in things like that. He's interested mainly in music and art as a shelter, as a refugee that makes possible to live our life. It is a kind of aesthetic sense of redemption and salvation. Without God, without the authority of metaphysical ideas, life cannot find a fundament. In the framework of this nihilistic conception, life can only be lived without reflection. Hanno, the last member of the family, understands that an active life is only possible when we are under the strong influence of empty representations. The ideas of enlightenment are paradoxically not a mean to understand, but to conceal the true substance of reality. Only they make possible to see a sense for life. He is the one who sees perfectly clear how his father has to wear a mask in order to live like he lived. But he doesn't need a mask. Hanno doesn't need a mask. Music is for him not an entertainment like for Johann Buddenbrock Sr., but the way to escape the unbearable mediocrity of everyday life. For him, music is not a decorative element. For him, music is a matter of personal survival. In Thomas Mann, those who reach a deep understanding of life, all them share a symbolic condition, namely to be ill, as I mentioned. Illness, incapacity of being part of the world, incapacity of assuming projects, unable to live adapted to the conditions of the world, to be attached to the language of this world. Schopenhauer and Thomas Mann describes the scenario of a nihilistic culture. Our world works only under the condition that we do not ask why we do what we do. Perhaps they help us to understand the very core of our age, dominated by technology, that is, by will to power. Thank you very much for your attention. I exceeded
Well, you exceed, but
4 or 5 minutes, but I'm sorry to have your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You exceed, but it was okay to put the tone of this seminar to this magnificent reflection. So it's okay. So our next speaker is Professor Marcelo Cambronero. He comes from the International Academy of Philosophy in Granada. He is an expert on literature and philosophy, and he also deals with phenomenology, hermeneutics, and also history, with a special interest also in Russia and literature in Russia. And we are going to hear another very different concrete case about intellectual decadence in medieval Spain and the caste system. So here's the word. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'm going today to talk about a historical question, but political, philosophical, and theological question too. The title of my intervention that you can find in your papers is The Caste System and the Jewish Problem as Causes of Intellectual Decadence in Spain. Ideology has always been an instrument of power aimed at the manipulation of mass population and social prevalence. A discourse is ideological whenever it reduces reality to a few simple interpretative criteria that can be communicated efficiently, thereby affording a reductive worldview that is easy to understand. Ideology, however, has at least two destructive effects on people's conscience that is of interest to highlight. First, it substitutes reality, along with its richness and beauty, for a mere discourse that muddles reality at large and interprets it simplistically and in an interesting manner. Second, it precludes the possibility of a truthful encounter between a human being and reality, which in turn arrests our potential for development, personal growth, and truthful comprehension of the world. Unfortunately, the transformation of religion into ideology is a frequent phenomenon throughout history, affecting all people and cultures to a lesser or greater degree. Nowadays, ideological manipulation manifests itself in a especially painful manner due to the fact that it can come with an array of instruments of terror and murder that were not available in the past. My aim during this brief talk is to show an instance of the effect that may follow from ideological closure. More specifically, I will consider the consequences for Spanish society brought about by what was called casticismo, that is, the caste system that was legally enforced in this country throughout 3 centuries, 15th to 17th, and which segregated an important part of society on the share of the stained blood, that is, the accusation of descending from Jewish origin. My thesis is that this caste system, along with the ideology derived from a corrupted understanding of Christianity, are the main causes of intellectual decline in Spain during the modern era. A gestion of the Jews by the Reyes Católicos, Catholic monarchs, left the mark of an internal division in Spain that would gradually manifest itself with time. The Edict of Granada forced Jews to face a terrible and unjust deliberation, conversion or exile. Whoever wished to remain in his land with his possession should be baptized. An ecclesiastical court, the Inquisition, would oversee conversion in order to safeguard their sincerity. For the first generation of new converts, the provision proved to be extremely beneficial. As Christians, free now from the myriad of impediments that had made it impossible for them to scale the social ladder due to their Jewish condition, they were able to display their comparatively superior culture and resourcefulness, often reaching positions considered socially prestigious. A short span of time after, families with Jewish origin, stemming from New Christian of converts, begin to hold high responsibilities in great cities like Toledo, Sevilla, or Barcelona, and they provide an enormous quantity of top servants within some of the finest households of noble rank, as well as at the royal court. They also provide writers, artists, geographers, cartographers, scientists, thinkers, and in ecclesiastical life, superiors of religious orders, bishops, and archbishops, even important members of the Inquisition, such as Thomas de Torquemada himself, a New Christian. Moreover, most of the country's greatest minds between the 16th and 17th century, and certainly all of those that helped to make Spain a cultivated nation and an intellectual reference for the rest of Europe, came from blood-stained families. To name a few, we could mention Juan Luis Vives, Miguel de Cervantes, Mateo Alemán, Tirso de Molina, Luis de Góngora, Fernando de Rojas, Antonio de Nebrija, Fray Hernando de Talavera, Santa Teresa de Jesús, San Juan de la Cruz, San Juan de Ávila, Francisco Suárez, and many, many others. The all or unstained Christians who had nurtured during previous centuries a hostile attitude toward Jews reacted to this state of things through legal measures, but above all, through the fostering of a popular mentality called anti-marrana, literally anti-pig. The laws on blood issued during this reaction, which prevented marranos from occupying official and or ecclesiastical posts, and which also prohibits them access to universities and other learning institutions, exhibit the mentality that leads behind the words of Juan Martínez Silicio, Archbishop of Toledo, when he said that in Spain there are two lineages: all Christians, whose own faith, as much as their forefathers, never lost footing, and those who profess descending from heretics and enemies of our faith. Being all Christian, not having stained blood, become a fundamental aspect of social life, even a question of honor. A social ideology emerged around this time and is nourished at all levels of society. It accuses New Christians of being unavoidably in possession of the world's vices, on top of the already customary accusation of being God murderers. This means that being a New Christian entails a blemish that no aristocratic title, no social or financial success can wash away, and that haunts whoever is accused of having stained blood. An example might be Lope de Rueda's comedy Medora, published in 1567. In it, we find Gargullo, son of an apothecary, a typically Jewish profession, imagining what he might do with the wealth he expects to raise. He determines that the first thing would be to kill all my relatives so that people don't find out about my lineage. In this climate, it becomes imperative to demonstrate publicly that there are no Jewish forefathers in the family, to make clear, in short, that one's blood is not stained. This crystallizes in a certain outlook that is considered proper of the all Christians, around which an ideology of great consequences takes shape. This ideology has three fundamental features. In the first place, a friendship and counter-reformist Catholicism that involves rejection of religious novelties and the dismissal of that part of European thinking that was or could be suspicious of being anti-Catholic. In other words, modernity. The reaction of Sephardic Jews living outside Spain contributed to this cultural occlusion. In Antwerp, the printing of the Spanish edition of Luther's works is financed by distinguished members of the Jewish community. Censorship and persecution of these books become generalized after the Spanish authorities intercepted a shipment of these writings at the harbor of Cartagena. Shortly after, trials against so-called Illuminados or Erasmistas, that is to say, followers of Erasmus of Rotterdam, began taking place. It must be remembered that previously, Spain had produced the polyglot or multilingual Bible, and that it had made Christ's life and the gospel more accessible to the layman through the series of notable works and translations. We might mention the translation of Ludolfo de Sajonia's Vita Christi, a translation financed by the merchant García de Rueda, a New Christian, first appeared in Spanish in 1502, shortly after it had been published in Catalonia, or the Vita Christi by Frances Ximenes, translated and commented by Queen Isabel's confessor Fernando de Talavera, a New Christian, or that the Redentor's life had been set to traditional verse or coplas by the Franciscan Íñigo de Mendoza, a New Christian too. All this activity took place within a movement that had already witnessed in 1485 the publication of a translation of the Gospels and Epistles by a layperson, Gonzalo de Santa Maria, a New Christian too, revised 10 years later by the request of King Ferdinand. To sum up, it was a nation that, thanks to the shortage of humanists, to reform movements within religious orders, and to the desire for more intimate, truer, and less formal understanding of Christianity, all of which was promoted by New Christians, it was in fact encouraging cultural reform throughout the Western world. Now that same nation seals its borders and decides to prohibit all reflection, all innovation, and that is not a repetitive scholasticism, in order to ensure the purity of souls, through attained by the existence of Jews, of heretics, lurking among its population. The second feature of this ideology has to do with professing a special pleasure in eating pork and pork-related products, especially ham and bacon, as proof of being an old Christian. To feel any sort of personal aversion toward pork is understood as an ambiguous sign of Jewish blood. Bacon and eggs are considered a divine trait, a mercy of God, according to Sebastián de Covarrubias in his Tesoro de la Lengua Castellana, published in 1611. This was doubtless familiar to the new Christian Miguel de Cervantes, who suggests that Alonso Quijano's blood was stained by pointing that precisely on Saturdays he ate bacon and eggs, but that for him this meant digestive grains and turmoil, or duelos y quebrantos. As for the sensible but ignorant Sancho, he too considers that his most noble trait in his blood, declaring that I am all Christian, and that to me is as good as being a count. For his part, Quevedo, who thought that there was no madness comparable to abstaining from wine and pork, expressed the content with which he regarded the new Christian Góngora with the trait of smearing his verses with bacon. Even foreign pilgrims of the Way of St. James brought with them wine and pork bones, aware of the fact that this way a mandatory safe conduct and that it ensured good treatment from local people. And it's in the chapter 54 of, in the second part of El Quijote. The third and last feature concerns the idea that being an old Christian entails ignorance, and more specifically, illiteracy. In this respect, the number of illiterate people at the court of Philip II is striking. Cervantes' swordplay Los Alcaldes de Daganzo, the mayor of Daganzo, shows with all clarity the peculiar link between honor and ignorance that runs through the 16th and 17th centuries in Spanish society. In the play, the character must choose a mayor from several candidates. To do so, they weigh the candidate's personal traits to ensure that the chosen one is an old Christian. One of the candidates is considered appropriate on the score of having a good wine palate. Another for his knowledge of anti-Jewish songs. Another one, when asked if he could read and write, replies that these are foolish skills that only lead you to the fire of the Inquisition, while he insists of having a type of knowledge that is better than reading. I know by heart the 4 prayers, he said, and I say them 4 or 5 times every week. In the end, Pedro de la Rana will be chosen mayor, passionately anti-Jewish and uncultivated like the rest of the candidates. He is nevertheless plain and sensible, which socially was considered a sign of being all Christian. These three features, taken as defining criteria of the old Christian, marked an era in Spain until approximately the beginning of the 19th century. They are the clearest social expression of an ideology that was not only anti-modern, anti-Lutheran or anti-Erasmista, but also an ideology that was contrary to all knowledge and opposed to intellectual growth. This ideology stands as the prominent cause that explains why, in cultural terms, Spain fell behind and lagged from the 16th to the 19th centuries, a situation that has left traces still palpable today within the realm of religious and intellectual mentalities, as well as in the quotidian habits of people and certain layers of society. A few months ago, an uncle of mine declared the following when he observed the food that had been prepared for a family celebration. Well, this family can be proved of having no problems with eating pork, right? Thank you very much.
I hope that we are not having problems with no eating, at least for the 15 minutes that we have left. And we can open the discussion. If you can stay here, we can open the discussion for this paper and also for the previous one, or for the things that you may like to introduce as new topics, or maybe the things that we are going to talk in the afternoon, because maybe some of you are forced to leave. So feel free also to.
Maybe the other professor can.
Excuse me?
The other professor can come here. Did you like?
Yes, we can stay, both of you. Yeah, we can assure a good seat for you. Sure. A nice cigar. No, it's your shades. See, it's okay. We can stay. Who wants to open the floor?
Okay. I'd like to put a question to each of the speakers. First to Professor Weiler, and then to Professor Cameron.
Maybe John, if you want, just to present yourself, since you are one of the speakers of the afternoon.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, so you are, yeah.
My name is John Majelik. I come from the University of Girona.
Okay.
The first question is about both questions are simple, I think, though it might be difficult to answer them. I don't know whether there is any answer yet. The question to Professor Weiler is, do you think there is any link between nihilism, as you depicted it from his reading from Schopenhauer and Mann, and another feature of nowadays of our society, which I would characterize as cynicism? What's the connection between nihilism and the way you presented it and being cynic or cynical or cynicism? And if there is any connection, and the question to Professor Romero is concerning your characterization of the idea of ideology. It seems to me as if you were characterizing ideology as merely a reduction of the whole complexity of reality, and this is a rather, I would say, a strange way of characterizing ideology. Ideology is obviously a reductionist point of view of how we should face reality, but from my point of view, it is it is also a way of dealing and facing and introducing action into the world. And that aspect, that second aspect, this second active aspect of the concept of ideology is, I would say, missing in your characterization.
Well, your question, I think, would be,
Sorry for that.
the reason for a seminary or for a course, I don't know, the link between nihilism as we know it and our society and attitudes of cynicism. I think that first of all, it's important to stress what we understand under nihilism. Of course, it's a very complicated question, and it's very different Russian nihilism, German nihilism, or Italian nihilism, etc. But in general, I think that there is something that can help us to answer to this question. It is what Nietzsche said. Nihilism is what we do not have any longer the answer to the question why. So, why do we do what we do? We don't have the answer to this question. I think that is extremely relevant in nowadays to take into consideration this remark did by Nietzsche, especially because the most prominent aspect, the most important aspect of our society, of our age, probably is technology. And technology would be, in fact, one of the ways to show, one of the scenarios in which it's evident that we don't have the answer to the question why. So technology as a form of will to power. And this is nihilism in historical format, in historical proportion. I think that Thomas Mann and Schopenhauer could foresee our age in the sense that we can only act as far as we don't know what we do. Once we try to reflect, once we try to understand what we do, in this very moment we stop acting as we did, or as we have been doing, you know. In other words, I think that we are involved in a full nihilistic society or a full nihilistic culture because of that, because we don't have not even the language to ask why. We have the language to answer the question, how does it work? But not to the question, why should it work? We have a language which is made to answer technical questions, but not to answer philosophical questions. We declare the success, the terrible success of neo-positivistic philosophy, for example, that not even that this language that could ask about the sense of what we do, it is a nonsense. So Wittgenstein in his tractarà, this kind of questions have no sense. And we are used to accept this kind of, well, it's a very complicated question. I just suggest a couple of ideas, and if you want to discuss this or just to talk about this, I invite you to add some reflections on this.
Then let me introduce a dialogue. Then why cynicism? Because I don't know, there is a step still to make between nihilism, the way you just said, and cynicism. If we take cynicism to mean, and well, I don't mind. I don't know what I am doing. I live in this nihilistic frame, this nihilistic world. I don't know. I don't have an answer. I don't have even a language for explaining why should we behave in this way. But nonetheless, because you are only cynical if you are aware of the consequences of your action, and if you are conscious, you are aware of how these consequences will, in some sense, contradict, be incoherent with some point of view we should even conventionally endorse.
Yes.
So this is why, I mean, if even more than that's only a reflection, obviously. But even more than nihilism, which is already an old subject, even more than nihilism, I think cynicism has something to do with nihilism. But I'm not sure how we arrived. We got to cynicism coming from this nihilistic.
Well, if I say, for example, I don't know why I do what I'm doing, I already know something. It's like Socrates. I know that I don't know. And nihilistic position is prior than this. Nihilistic position, according to Schopenhauer or according to Thomas Mann, is really I don't know at all. I mean, I don't have even the awareness of realizing that I don't know. Is this kind of naivety of the bourgeois? Is this kind of the naivety of the person, of the type of person that leads Europe to the war? The outbreak of the First World War, we act without awareness. We don't know what we are doing. Exactly right now, we don't know what we are doing developing technology. We don't know the consequences. We don't have any idea about the consequences of this incredible, huge progress. And we don't know at all what it means to transform university in centers in which we prepare people to be able to work in the framework of these contexts. We don't know at all what we make in giving up philosophy and giving up aesthetic and giving up reading books, etc. We don't know at all, but it is not cynical. I don't think that we are living in a cynical age. We are living in a nihilistic age. It means that to develop a cynical attitude, it means to have a certain conscience of what we are doing. And we lack of this conscience. And we think that we are very naive, extremely naive people, like playing with toys, you know. And we accept it. We are very happy to have new toys every year, to get adapted to these new toys, and we expect these new toys, and we are very happy, but we don't know at all what we are doing, and that is the point. It is my impression that it's not that we understand this and we develop indifference. We are not cynical, we are ignorant, I think.
I disagree with that.
It's my point of view. Maybe this afternoon I will change it after your opinions, but it's my department, right? I mean, these people believe really that it's good for that is good for us, that is good for our universities, that is good for the young people, and it's good for the country, to develop our civilization in this way. And I don't think that they are cynical. We are completely, you know, in the exile of thought. You don't think.
I would like to go into ideas you gave as a hope. No? You opened two windows, two beautiful windows. In your pessimistic and nihilistic way, you opened two beautiful windows. One was that Schopenhauer, I think he said that the only hope was, the secret hope, you said, was to be an artist or to be a saint. This opens, I don't know, I hope really another way, even in technology. We should try to be saints or artists in technology. And also through Thomas Mann, you said that, he said in the end about this Buddenbrook, that this one, he only saw a hope also in music and art, you know, and that without God or metaphysical, there would be no life. No? So I think these are the links, no, you opened, no?
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, I'm answering with your words.
No, well,
They were beautiful.
the point is that, in my opinion, we should be aware of the fact that we should escape from this dialectic, either being naive, nihilistic, or being pessimistic. And I think the key point is, in my humble opinion, is of course having religious faith makes possible to escape from this dialectic. You know, get away from this tension between Johann Buddenbrooks and Hanno Buddenbrooks. I mean, from being let's say a bit stupid, a bit naive, a bit unconscious, or being an artist, close in my sphere, close in my interiority, and understanding that nothing has a meaningful purpose. That every purpose is empty. I think we should escape from this dialectic, but it's going to be difficult. Yeah. And
through art and spirituality.
Well, I think that the key point, I repeat, my humble opinion is to reenact religion in a different way that we had in the past. For example, what you're exceptional speech, reminds us that every restoration of the past, of course, is not interesting at all.
No.
Not at all. We don't need the past in the terms you described very well. We don't need this kind of religion. We don't want it. It's useless.
No, but we are linking in the past, to go to his exposition, to his, he mentioned Quixote, Don Quixote, which is, in a way, I think it could be in the past, but these real art things, when you read them, they make present. And through Don Quixote and Cervantes, he opened there, like another link to escape from naivety. If we say in Quixote, is beautiful. So.
Okay, my question. It's true, we all need scams or languages with the contents to understand reality and to discuss reality. It's true, but if all point of view or tradition or Belvin in the words of Wittgenstein are called ideology, then we don't have a definition of ideology, because ideology is all. All is ideology, then ideology is nothing. Then I'd like to compare ideology and philosophy. Ideology is a discourse, and I know everybody needs a discourse, a scheme about reality and to explain reality, and philosophy too. But a philosopher has no problem to change his point of view to better understand reality. But when a person is into an ideology, and we can see this kind of people every time on TV, he prefers defend his point of view because he understands reality toward his ideology, then prefer manipulate reality, the presentation of reality, to adapt it to his language. This is terrible. And when a person looks to the reality with this perspective, then he's not a philosopher. There is a very clear difference between one thing and another, I believe.
We still have 5 to 10 minutes if you want.
I have to say that I appreciate very much your speech. Really, I found it very interesting, and these 3 aspects of the ideology or the 3 fundamental features. It is, sometimes. Do you think that this situation in general in the Spanish state is similar than other countries in Europe? It is a characteristic of here, or what happens? Because there is a big difference in terms of I would say, cultural intensity in the Spanish state or in other countries in the middle of Europe. And sometimes I wonder why. It has to do with Protestantism, with humanism. It is something typical from here that we considered ignorance as a social value. Or is, well, I think I understood this, that ignorance was considered something good, something interesting. It's part of my honor to be ignorant, because knowledge could be dangerous. And it was dangerous to think. It was dangerous to think in a critical way. It is something particular from Spanish society, or do you think that we can say that in general the Catholic world in Europe was similar?
No, it's very particular. No, in the rest of Europe, there was another problem. For instance, the problem between Erasmus of Rotterdam and the Sorbonne University, you know. But the rest of countries of Europe thought about the Jews in a different way. For example, in France or in Germany, the official position was there are no Jews in our country. It's the official position in all Europe. But in the practice, the life of the Jews is very normal, almost normal in these countries. There was no Inquisition and no persecution, no? And then the cultural growth of these communities was normal. But in Spain and in Portugal too, for a long time, the peculiar point of view at the link between to be all Christian and to be illiteracy. This is very peculiar because it's a question of honor. Don't know. Read, not writing. It's incredible. It's incredible. Then if I have a lot of books, if I like to study, it's possible if you are a clergyman. But if you are a layman, if you are Jews, it's very dangerous for your family, for your future, for your sons, etc. Yeah, it's incredible. For a long time, the Spanish intellectuals don't know this history of our country. But in the last century, a lot of studies, and now too, are solved this peculiar question and the influence of the cultural expression of the Spanish culture. It's not, but I want to say, it's not the Inquisition. The Inquisition is a particular aspect, a phenomena of this ideology. It's the ideology, not only in the core or only in the king, but in the people. The people think it's. Thank you very much.
So we have now 1 hour and 15 minutes break, and we will come again with Sufism and classical Muslim literature at 2:45. 2:45. It's an European program, so also our timetable is really European. Thank you very much to all of you, and we will come here in 1 hour and 15 minutes. If you want to leave your things here, we will pause. Okay? And if you're going to leave your computer, thank you.
Sí, sí. Uy, clar, com una mateixa perquè no les efectes d'emoció. La classe és el semblant, no passa i ell troba que vivia a Japó.
You come from Edinburgh?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, originally, yeah. Yeah, for about 4.5 years. I'm the atheist guy, yeah.
Sí, sí.
Yeah, my wife is a weird.
Tengo una llave por si queréis dejar aquí cosas. Voy a cerrar aquí para buscar. Si queréis dejar.
Bueno, eso